Hey, Matt here, and today is day 8 of my self-isolation in Canada, and I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID risk tolerance and the way any of us are viewing the pandemic over time and the ways we might have been affected or not. When the pandemic was first starting to wash onto the shores of North America back in last February, thereabouts, I think a lot of us really, as our only frame of reference, had the prior SARS epidemic back in 2003, or the swine flu of 2009, or maybe Ebola in 2014. But in all of those cases, the effects were pretty contained and it was resolved fairly quickly. The second week of March, I flew from Minneapolis to New York City and spent a very active weekend around town with my best friend. And at the time, sort of felt like this is being overhyped, that the media is being sensationalistic. And at the time that I left, right before I boarded my plane, I saw that South by Southwest in Austin was canceled, which pretty much would take something truly extraordinary to make happen. And, indeed, that was the case. And, in hindsight, it, of course, portended really bad days to come. And a couple months after, I actually got a COVID antibody test because I was so convinced after pressing shoulders all around Manhattan that there was a high likelihood I was exposed, and it came up negative. And frankly, this is just a really random disease. It's really a wrong place, wrong time thing. But at the same time, there's a lot with, big snow chunk fell. There's a lot within our control to at least common sense mitigation in terms of our own exposure. And I think over time, people's sense of risk gets distorted, especially when we're in this just really extended nightmare. Yesterday, the US had over 300,000 infections, 4,000 deaths a day and climbing right now. My homeland of Los Angeles, the models are now saying that very soon 1 in 10 Angelinos will be infected or have been infected. Just staggering numbers. And in the case of California, it seems extra tragic because they had such extensive lockdowns for so long, and psychologists are sort of parsing what went wrong, and a lot of it is a lack of esprit de corps of people who tried to do their best and then lost trust over time when things didn't get better, especially when there were restrictions like no outdoor dining, no hanging outside. And I think those involved in harm reduction when it comes to, say, vulnerable populations as it relates to risky sexual practices, drug use. The harm reduction model has a lot of merit, helping people live their lives in a way that they're going to do what they're going to do, but at least give them the tools to do it in a way that presents the least amount of risk and does the most amount of good. I think certainly for myself, thinking about my behavior this last year, I've had some bottom lines and I just enforce those, and knock on wood, it's served me well. I haven't seen the inside of a restaurant since mid-March. I've traveled to several states almost entirely by ground, by car, or by train, and I've had some great outdoor adventures, and I've had some good times outside with friends. But I also realize one false move and that wouldn't work. I'm kind of grateful that I'm under 14-day imposed isolation, because I don't think humans are rational decision makers when it comes to uh, really figuring out how to eliminate risk. And when it comes to COVID, you can't eliminate risk entirely. And being locked down for 14 days is really the closest you can come. And if it wasn't for this, it wouldn't have been a good idea for me to come here and visit my father and my stepmother. And the nightmare we're seeing play out in the US and frankly parts of Canada too are reflective of people traveling for the holidays, going to be with their loved ones, which after such a hellish year as 2020 is understandable on a base level, but it's just extending this tragedy out even more, even longer, and the vaccines can't roll out fast enough. In Minnesota, we had back in November, we had the worst outbreak in the nation for a short while, driven by sort of the wildfire spread in the surrounding states, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, Iowa, states with much looser restrictions. And Minnesota and the other states somewhat got it under control, from over 100 cases per 100,000 on a rolling 7-day average basis. We got down into the 20s. We were the worst in the nation, and as of this week, we've been consistently in the bottom 10, but the numbers are ticking up everywhere again, and a lot of that has to do with the holidays. But those basic control measures, no indoor dining, wear your masks in public, wear it publicly. If you're in public and in an enclosed space for an extended amount of time, if you're working on the front lines, wear eye protection too. Just these really basic things. And it's just sad that there is this slice of the population that will never be swayed to do anything but enforce their own sense of individualism. And a lot of us are very, very anxious to see a competent federal response finally come down the pike soon. But the carnage prior to that is just unfathomable. So 2021 is not going to be a quick turnaround from 2020, as we've vividly seen this week in so many ways. But I like the frame of thinking that one friend put it to me last week, that the 2020 started off good for a lot of people and ended terribly, and 2021 is starting terribly, and there's hope that it'll end better. And I just hope that we'll do more to take care of the vulnerable, those who can't not be on the front lines, those who live in congregate settings, those who economically have fallen off a cliff this year. There's a lot of damage to repair, and so many aspects of society that we just need to sort of rethink our public policy and our collective consciousness about how we approach everything. So here's hoping for a much better year. And if you agree, disagree, leave your comments below, like this video, share it, subscribe. I will catch you later. Have a good weekend.